No.
Okay. Oh, I know why. I'm a dummy. I got to share my screen, don't I? So that's going to be this. And then I think I hit, then I got to view it right. Sorry. So now you should see just the first screen, yeah? Okay. So welcome everybody. Hi. Like Katie said, that's Katie. She didn't introduce herself. Katie Franklin. Our marketing and salesperson, and also my daughter. She's had to live with all of this stuff for her whole life. So we're just gonna, one of the things I noticed and what kind of stimulated me to do this is that people get in trouble because they don't know a lot about fragrance and they don't understand that there are rules that people look at in terms of regulatory compliance and safety. And that's really what this is about, because you ultimately need to be able to answer questions for your customers and any sort of regulatory person who might have questions for you. So again, I'm going to try and do this as briefly as possible. It's all about the paperwork, unfortunately. Once you've found a thing you love, you need to make sure that it complies with these various safety requirements and the various regulations. And I'll talk about those for a second, or in a second. First, you're going to talk about, first, I want you to understand of how you list things on your INCI, your ingredient list on your product. So there's really not that many options. You can call it fragrance. You can call it fragrance and call out all the allergens. If you're in the state, if you're complying with the state of California, that because we require that, other states don't. You can, if you're using essential oils or essential oil blends, you can call out the names of the essential oils. And you can also call out the essential oil again with the allergens. And I'm going to show you the documents that teach you how to do that. Under definitions in general, FDA, if you're doing business in the United States, basically any kind of fragrance chemical can just be called fragrance. And you don't have to just say anything more than that as far as the federal government is concerned. And I actually should have state of California on there, and I'll change this and add it. And if anybody wants a copy, I can send it to them. Or you have to call out all the ingredients. There are also private fragrance standards. So if you say the word natural, or if you say the word organic, or any of these other things, you have to deal with, it is advisable. You don't have to. You can be as irresponsible as you want. But if you want to be a responsible brand owner, you need to be able to explain why you made a decision about choosing a particular standard. So the standards that are available to you that are private are ISO 9235, which is basically a set of definitions of ingredients that you can use and call it natural. It costs about $100 to buy the ISO. It's like 2 pages. It's not real big. There's the Cosmos standard, which you can download from the Cosmos site. There's the Not True standard, which you can download from the Not True site. NSF, you have to pay for that standard from the NSF site. But both Cosmos and Not True provide either an organic or a natural definition for you to have your products certified to, should you want to certify it. You don't have to, but I'm just saying those are available. The basic rules for all the ingredients you have, of course, that you need to have a specification or a technical data sheet, and you need to have a safety data sheet. I'm going to point something out. An SDS, or a safety data sheet, is primarily, it lives in the OSHA part of our federal regulations. It is a safety sheet. It is not an information sheet about the ingredient. I have had people ask me for safety data sheets as though they were going to get a lot of information. And basically, this is going to tell you whether or not it's flammable or not, or whether or not it's poison or not. That's what safety data sheets are for. They are not required to give you any other quality information, any other information in terms of whether it's natural or anything else. That should be to some degree on your technical data sheet or your specification, and then also in these other forms that I'm going to show you. For fragrance chemicals specifically, you are going to ask for an IFRA statement and for an EU allergen statement. The EU allergen statement has changed over the years. Last year, they changed it and put it into a category where we used to have 26 or 27 EU allergens. We now have 81. Now, I'll give you examples. And then at the very end of this, I have some information. Again, you can have a copy of this if you'd like. And I'm going to stop that share, and we're going to look at these actual documents. That. And now we're going to look at these, which are let's close this down. Okay. This. Oh my gosh. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is an example of an IFRA document. And actually, I think what we're going to do is we're going to look at the allergen documents first. One of the companies we represent is called Essentina, so you'll see their logo. I'm sharing their documents. And we're going to talk about the allergens first, because in the state of California, they now have a law. They have a regulation. It's an act. I don't know that we actually put it into regulatory language yet. That requires you to call out the allergens. And the relationship between the IFRA document and the allergen is that the IFRA document will tell you how much of each kind of allergen is considered safe in a formula. And the allergen statement will tell you what allergens are in that particular fragrance chemical and how much of it, the percentage of each of them in there. So this is from a relatively low allergen product. As you can see, this has less than 1 ppm. This is from, I think, our low allergen collection. And there are certain rules that if it's below a certain level, you don't have to call it out on the ingredient statement. That's why a lot of people are very interested in these. And you can see how low these levels are. 1 ppm, less than 1 ppm, 0.0005%, which means there's another 2 zeros in there, right? So these have very low levels of allergens. Later this year, they will be launching a no allergen collection, which has no allergens, which is, it's a real challenging thing to do. And I think there's only going to be, I don't know, 10 or 12 fragrances in that collection, but we'll have that there. So you can see here what this looks like. These ingredients are the chemicals that are in a particular fragrance blend. You would see the same thing for an essential oil. If you, yesterday I was looking at the essential oil allergen list example, for example, for orange oil. Real basic thing, a lot of people use it. You can see here limonene. Limonene is that thing that makes all citrus oils smell like citrus. And in orange oil, it is above 95%. as opposed to less than 1 ppm by way of comparison. So this is something you're going to ask for. You're going to ask for the allergen statement. And then let's look at how the IFRA, is this the right one? Yeah. So this is an IFRA statement for the same fragrance. And the IFRA, which stands for International Fragrance Association, it is a collection of people, generally from the fragrance industry, who meet throughout the year, and they look at the science on the safety levels. And then they work, in this case, they look at a lot at that information from the EU, and they sort of establish the guidelines of safety. I'm going to scroll down on this, and what you'll see is an explanation of what each of these categories are. So this is what Annex 1 is, an extract of information provided by IFRA in relation to types of application present in each IFRA category. So this is for Category 1, lip products. Category 2, deodorant and antiperspirants, all types, including anything intended, blah, blah, blah. Category 3, eye products, so proximity to the eye, which of course is a fairly high concern. And then it goes on and on. It becomes less and less concerning. And then you get all the way down to IFRA 11 and 12. 12 is candles, that kind of thing. So what you're looking for here is the category of product you're making. So if you're going to make a hand cream, it's going to be a little less concerning than a body and face cream, right? 5A and then 5C. Category 4, these are hydroalcoholic and non-hydroalcoholic fine fragrance. The fine fragrances are designed to stick to your skin. So again, they're going to have a little different level of concern about the safety. So then if we go back up to this, you can see this one, because it's that low allergen, there's a lot of categories. There's no limit. You can use as much of this as you want because there aren't any allergens. If I go to another type of product, this is another fragrance that they make. And you can see, number one, there's a lot more. There's a page and a quarter here of different allergens. Remember, there's 81 of them. And so it has the CAS number, which is the chemical abstract number, which is an international organization that sets numbers that are internationally recognized to say what a chemical is. The EC is sort of their own CAS numbers. And then here's the concentrations. So looking at this one, this is called greenhorn, and it's a very green aroma. And I'm trying to see what it's got a lot of. It's got a limonene. Remember, we had the limonene, that citrusy aroma. And then it's just got a lot of different things in here to give it this green aroma. So you can see how different one fragrance is to another. And then here is the IFRA certificate. So this is very different. On the last IFRA certificate that we looked at, it had a very few restrictions. This one, it's telling you the exact percentage you can use. It's saying you can't use this on lips at all. It's not approved for a lip product. And it's not approved for IFRA 6. And what's IFRA 6? IFRA 6 is toothpaste, mouthwash. So anything that's consumable, right? So we go back, and here we have the list of approved and non-approved. You will see vast differences, fragrance to fragrance, and even just essential oil to essential oil. I should have opened an essential oil one for you to see, but I suppose I could poke around and see if we can find one. Let's see if I can find us an IFRA for an essential oil. be in various statements. IFRA statements. EU allergens. Oh, here's one that's interesting. So this is one of ours. Let's see. Okay. I hope everybody can see this. This is for a Rose Absolute that we sell. And you can see, again, lots of different chemicals that are in this, and whether or not, if it says not applicable, that just means they didn't find it in this one. So benzyl alcohol, citronellol, eugenol, geraniol. These are the things that are from this this allergen list that, or I guess this is an IFRA list. No, this is an allergen list. That tells you what's in there. And then I don't know if I have actually I have this in the wrong folder. I was looking for an allergen and I actually got an IFRA. So that's kind of that. We're at 11:20 and I pretty much shared everything I want to share. Does anybody have any questions? And I'm gonna stop the share. Kate, I don't have a question box. Do you?
There's a chat section, but I was just gonna ask if you can define natural fragrance, because a lot of people put natural fragrance on their inky,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Okay, so if I go, so in our blogs, there are, I'll actually bring it up because I wrote a blog about that and I found it yesterday. Excuse me. Natural fragrance should be, it is, I would say, safest for you as a brand owner. Oh, it says the chat is disabled. I guess there's, because I have a Q&A thing. And it does have that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. You can write into the Q&A box then instead.
Yeah, right into the Q&A box. Excuse us. This is the first time we've done this, and they keep changing, as you all know, probably. They keep changing everything all the time. Okay. Okay, so I'll get to the second question. So to answer the question, if we go to, I want to answer this real quickly. If I go to my blog and I go to fragrance, and you search fragrance in our blogs, and then there's another one. There was another one besides this. If you search on our blog, there are two articles. One defines each of those private standards that I talked about. So the way I would actually label it is you are required to say fragrance, for example, or aroma if you want to sell in the EU. And in the US, say you have an essential oil blend and you want to say this is a proprietary brand blend. You can't do that. It's illegal. You can just say fragrance, and then you can do an asterisk and you can call out the allergens and you can say essential oil blend, natural essential oils per ISO 9235, for example. And if you do that, then you've at least given the customer a way to figure out what the heck you're talking about when you say natural, because there is sort of a legal definition of natural, but it really has to do more with whether or not you've changed molecules. So that gets a little too weird for just a basic cosmetic label. But if you refer to a particular standard, then you can reference that standard and you have then informed the public what basis you've made a decision on, and it protects you legally. I hope that makes sense.
Um,
Kimberly said the IFRA and allergen statements are the two documents you need to show retailers. Not really. These are documents you need to know if you were making a product. So this goes in two directions. One, if you are self-manufacturing and you're making a product and you're using a fragrance or you're using an essential oil, you should know how much of that essential oil is safe. So if you have an IFRA list for orange oil, and I can see if I have one of those, then you can, do I have that? And it might, orange oil. Yeah. All right. I'm going to share real quickly a IFRA for orange oil. So if you look at this, what you're going to see is the IFRA class, right? And this tells you the percent of orange oil that you can use in your finished products. Like they say for household products that are hand contact or laundry, they even say 100% for orange oil. But there are a lot of restricted things in there. So then you kind of have to set back down to these restricted materials and look at what their limits are. And their limits are different. And so you need to be aware of how to read these. So these aren't really for retailers. These are for you to understand how to make your product. And if you're using a contract manufacturer, and I'm sorry for the loud phone, but somebody will grab it. You want to tell your contract manufacturer, please make sure this is IFRA compliant. And then it's up to them to ask the fragrance supplier to give them the IFRA information. Hope that, does that make sense? And then the next one, should every supplier's IFRA statement have the same category levels for the same orange for lips at 3%? And this is wrong. No. It should, every essential oil supplier, there's generally what you'll see is a range. So that if you actually look at the allergen level, if somebody's sending you, I have, Essentina has very good equipment. They are a fragrance house. And so when they make an allergen list like this, their list is going to tell you exactly how much is in there because they are measuring their fragrance with probably a GC, a gas chromatograph. When you buy from somebody like an online web distributor of, say, well, any kind of essential oils, right? They are taking stuff off it from their supplier, and their supplier is going to tell them, and they're probably not testing it in-house. This is very expensive equipment, but it is their responsibility to work with a reputable supplier manufacturer. Like we represent manufacturers who have the ability to create credible documents, and that's one of the reasons we choose to work with them. And you want it, but you are going to see a little variation. It's not going to be the same.
Is there variation in harvest to harvest too?
Yeah, and even country to country. So if you buy tea tree oil from Australia and compare it to tea tree oil from South Africa, you're going to see very different numbers because the environment in which those plants are grown are quite different. And so the oils that are produced by the plant. And sometimes even the other thing, this is when I knew I was really fascinated by essential oils. One of the things, this is true for both geranium, I know this is true for geranium and tea tree, it's probably true for many plants. If it rains, right, the soil gets wet. We all have experienced that when soil gets wet, things mold. So what happens to a lot of plants is the essential oil that's in the leaves goes down into the roots and keeps the plant roots and from molding or from being attacked by mold, and therefore protects the plant. So you never harvest for an essential oil distillation after a rain. You wait until it's gotten sunny and the oils have come back up into the leaves. Um, but that kind of thing, if it's cold or if it's, there's going to be environmental impact on how oils are manifesting in a plant. And then what IFRA number are we on? We're on IFRA 51, and that's what you're asking for. And on the allergen, if you look at the allergen thing, this will say, according to EU allergen regulation, because this is another thing that I always call it 81 because that's how many are on there, but it's not really. What it is it is regulation 1223/2009, including the amendment 2023/1545, which let's get really wonky and regulatory here. So, I'm throwing a lot at you. And, but there are so many people who do not ask for these documents and they really should have them. And if you need help with them, I'm happy to take a look at them, provided it's sort of reasonable. And help you see what you're looking at or understand what you're looking at. And we will talk about this a little bit more in other webinars, and they do change it. I think that when I started in the cosmetic industry, we were at IFRA 40. We were at IFRA 40, and now we're at 51. So, they change it about every other year, probably. They don't change it every year. And hopefully they won't change it for a while because this last one was big. They changed a lot of things. So that's it, unless anybody has any other questions.
I actually have a question that I think might be helpful for customers making the final product is, um, do you have to create your own allergen statement when you've blended fragrances for your final product? Because then you're combining different allergen levels if you're using three different essential oils.
Um, because you know what each of them is, you should be able to know. I basically kind of had to do that yesterday for somebody. And so I just dropped it into an Excel, and maybe that's a tool that we could make for people, but the answer is yeah, because you need to know what you're putting in your product and what level it's there at. Um, Generally, you can kind of rule of thumb use the essential oil with the highest level. Like if you're doing a real citrusy aroma, you're going to look at the oil that has the highest level, and that's going to kind of give you a pretty good indication. But it's math of percentage times a percentage. So if something is 96% limonene and you're using that essential oil, say you're going to use 1% of an essential oil and you're just going to do a third and a third and a third, so 33.3%, right? You're just going to go 33.3 times 96%, and that's going to tell you what's in that 1%. Right. So it gets a little complicated if you weren't good at math. I'm not good at math. I always have to have people check me. Fortunately, I have somebody here who can do that. But that's what you're looking at is sort of percentage times percentage math.
Okay.
So I think that's it. And so next time we'll look at some other kinds of documents. I got to figure out what we need to talk about next time. I may look at just a technical data sheet, which is a specification for a product. And maybe one day we'll just look at safety data sheets so that people understand what they're looking at.
Yeah. And if there's other things that you feel are confusing about the cosmetic world and you would like us to feature a short little webinar on it, let us know. We may do something about greenwashing laws or
Oh, yeah.
claims on packaging in general, like claims you should never make that could get you in legal trouble. Um, yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks, Kimberly, and
Yes,
really good
thank you,
questions.
Kimberly. And Sneaks, whoever you are, appreciate it.
All right, have a good day.
Bye.